Welcome to Elevating La Cultura podcast, a space where I talk with Latinas who are passionate about what they do and are willing to share their passion with others to change the narrative, especially for the next generation. Each season is centered around different topics, but all with the Latina perspective. This is season 3, focused on education. So vámonos, and let's get into it. Hola, and welcome back to Season 3. I'm Karina, host of Elevating La Cultura podcast. And even though I was on break from releasing episodes, our community on Instagram has been growing and the conversations there have been amazing. I'm so proud of the work that we're all doing in our own lives to elevate our cultures and empower the next generation. I've been reflecting since starting this podcast season about how I've gotten to this place in my life. And that's kind of what you have to do when you want to educate others or even your own kids about the realities of the world. You have to do a lot of reflection on what you were taught and how you might want to do things differently based on what you went through. So I'm thinking through all of this as I prepare for this next season on education, and I'm like, it's really wild. I'm Mexican American, I'm a business owner, I'm a podcast host, I'm married, and I'm homeschooling my 2 kids. I mean, like, what is my life? It is busy, to say the least. So I know that there are many factors that have gotten me here, but I have to attribute a little bit in part to the experiences I had in my education. Let me start by saying that I really enjoyed going to school. My personality was perfect for the education system. I was very studious and would spend most evenings studying and doing homework so that I could get good grades. I am very thankful to my father who invested in my education after high school, which allowed me to attend a 4-year university. Going to college was always a huge priority in my family, and it was pretty much what I worked for. I didn't let anything distract my educational goals and did what was required so I could keep my scholarships and graduate. Sometimes when you're just focused on getting through something like years of schooling, you don't really know what's going on and you just want to get to that finish line. At least that's how I felt. I got through my 4 years so that I could get that diploma that would translate to hopefully a good job. However, I didn't really know what I wanted at that age. I was simply following the only path I saw. And as I was going through the motions during my last year in college, I realized that I didn't want to go into the profession I was getting my degree in. Now I'm going to get a little personal, but this is my story and I've come to reconcile with it. And I share because there might be someone else with similar thoughts or in a similar situation. I went to a small liberal arts Christian university. My father had hopes of me getting an MBA, but at the time I was involved in church ministry and wanted to go into a creative field. So my degree is a bachelor's in worship arts with a focus on leadership. During my time, I studied in religion classes, I took music classes as well as music lessons. I actually know how to play the piano and guitar. I was trained vocally and even took a little bit of drum lessons. This is all something I haven't really shared publicly, pero aquí estamos, and it's my story. I also studied radio broadcasting, video production, film photography, graphic design, and I took plenty of communications classes. I almost switched to a communications degree and almost had enough credits to make it a minor, but I didn't want to stay in college longer than I had to. Anyway, at the end of my 4 years, I did not want to work at a church, which is essentially what my studies prepared me for. But thankfully, I had enough insight to take a variety of classes that would give me the foundation to pursue any creative craft. I share this because a lot of our experiences in high school or college influence the rest of our adult life. And I know that there are many people that make changes or switch their majors while they're going or attending college. Many people meet their spouse in college and get married, like I did. People might decide to continue their education to get their master's or doctorate because they're clearer on that path that they want to pursue. However, for me, after college, I was a little lost. I knew pursuing a creative field wasn't going to be easy because it didn't have a clear roadmap like I was used to. I also ended up having kids pretty soon after getting married, which shifted things for me, especially in the way that I wanted to create a home, life, work balance. So let's go back to looking at my foundation. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My father was an entrepreneur and still is. This man always valued learning whenever he got the chance, and now in his 60s has gotten his real estate license and is in the process of selling his first house. He's literally showing us that there's no wrong age to shift and pivot and start something new. Anyway, I knew I always wanted to work for myself, but I also saw the value of my mom being present in our lives, which is something I also wanted to do. So I decided I wanted to try homeschooling my kids. I loved the flexibility, creativity, and the fact that I could just be with them and they could do life alongside me. And once I started, I've continued to homeschool and found that there is a need for more representation in this space, since homeschooling is a predominantly white space, and I wanted other Latina families to see it being done. The first year I started homeschooling my daughter was the one where I really had to think through the things I knew about my education life and start to deconstruct them. The hardest part wasn't going through an actual curriculum, but it was working on my own mindset and ingrained ideas around education. I have a type A personality, which is probably why I love going to school and getting good grades. And I took pride in getting recognition and doing a good job, and it became my identity. But when I started homeschooling, it turned everything I had thought about school on its head, because there's no grades, there's no right way to homeschool, there's no one telling me that I'm doing a good job. I had to start shifting the way I thought about education in general and how I wanted to construct this space for my kids. Now, I know this is a privilege. I work for myself, which allows me to homeschool. My husband also has a full-time job, allowing us to have a steady income. We have made many sacrifices to have this lifestyle work because it was a value for our family. I'm also not someone who sees homeschooling as the only option. I just see it as an option and something that is working for us in this season. I've been able to dream and plan ahead for my kids' futures and help other Latina families see that homeschooling, while unconventional, is possible and that they have a friend in me to help them through it if they want. This is especially true in the year 2020, when everyone had to shift the way their kids' schooling looked like. And I was happy to be a support for those who needed it. With this season, I want to elevate Latinas in the education space because I know education is the foundation for our kids and it can really be influential for the rest of their lives. I want to help listeners hear stories and have hope that there are people advocating for our kids, doing all that they can for the next generation, and inspiring parents to do the same for their own kids. There are so many of us who are trying to make changes in the education space, even among the youngest ages. I'm so proud to know each of my guests and learn alongside you as we are encouraged by their stories so we can come alongside our kids to provide a safe space for them as they go on to figure out life. I'm so excited for this season. It's going to be so good. So subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode when it goes live. You can also watch on YouTube to see our passion behind the conversations. I also encourage you to share with others, because the more people we have talking about education in the Latinx community, the easier it will be to make a collective change for a better future. There will be a new episode every Tuesday, so after you listen, feel free to take a screenshot and share on Instagram and tag at Elevating La Cultura or send me a DM. You can also comment on our YouTube video if you're watching online. I always like to hear from people and how they resonate with the stories that I share. So please leave a review on Apple Podcasts so we can get more ears listening to these stories and we can continue elevating la cultura. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day, afternoon, evening, whenever you're listening, y nos vemos next week. Adiós.